Welcome to the Thought Diaries, a podcast dedicated to mental health, neuroscience and trauma. I'm your host, Roxanne, owner of Helix Trauma Training and founder of Trauma Healing UK. I'm with Willie Nicol today. Do you want to talk a bit about what you do, Willie, to introduce yourself?
Yes, thanks, Roxanne. It's a great pleasure to be here. My name is Willie Nicol. I was a police officer for 31 years. On retirement, took up a job in corporate security with a big company who were kind enough to make me redundant 3 years ago. And I kind of fell into life coaching, which is now my business. I'm a change and personal development life coach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we're going to speak a bit about stress and the impacts of daily living, because you're a life coach and I'm a therapist, so it's something we see time and time again, and it's something that is growing. Would you say in your experience that you've seen more and more stress?
I think the current situation that we all know about has only increased stress levels because of the uncertainty of the current situation. And without getting into too deeply and talk about Maslow's pyramid of human needs and whatnot, one of the basic human needs is a need for certainty. We like framework, we like structure, we like predictability, we like to know what's going on. And a lot of that has been taken away from us, either by the situation or by impositions from the government, the health service, etc. So yes, I would agree that stress levels are increasing, particularly because of the COVID situation.
Yeah, and that uncertainty, I mean, I've experienced it so much, and it's that it provokes anxiety, which is a stress response as well. And it's that, God, what's coming next? And we spoke earlier about the caveman analogy, and that kind of, in those days, it was that saber-toothed tiger, and you're like, where is it? Is it going to come out the bush? And you're just waiting for it.
Well, to go way back to the caveman days, right? And that's an analogy that's used a lot, as you come out your cave, look for something to eat, and try to make sure there wasn't someone trying to eat you. So the stress response, or the fight and flight response, is your body's automatic reaction to danger and to stress. So that if the saber-toothed tiger did appear, certain chemical reactions took place in your body which made you more prepared to either run away from it or fight it. And the same kind of reactions happen now, although we're way past the time of saber-toothed tigers. But the stresses and strains of everyday living now create the same response, which, if managed properly, are fine. If not managed properly, can be quite dangerous to your mental and physical health.
Yeah, and what I see a lot nowadays is people trying to deny stress or trying to avoid it, and that can result in drinking, addictions, just even watching TV too much is a way to avoid. And we've all been there, we've all watched TV too much, I know I do. And it's, well, people forget that it is that instinct, it's our brain telling us that there's something wrong. So it's a very physical thing. It's not just something in our mind going that stress, and we're told that stress is a bad thing, and it's not always a bad thing, and it's about not avoiding it as well, but finding ways to manage it and to reduce it in a healthy way.
Absolutely. I mean, stress is normal. It's part of life, right? Small amounts of stress are good for us because they keep us on our toes. They keep us focused. They keep us alert to danger. So a small amount of stress is perfectly normal, natural, running all the time. It's when the stress becomes either repetitive, continuous, or excessive, or all three, that's when you have a problem. And to get back to the saber-toothed tiger and the caveman, without getting too technical, there's a part of your brain called the amygdala, right, which triggers a fight or flight response. And what it does is it sends messages to other parts of your brain to say, we need to do something now. So it stimulates the production of adrenaline and cortisol. Adrenaline makes your heart beat faster, gives you the impetus to run away, if you like. Cortisol apparently shuts down functions within the body which are not absolutely required for the
Yeah.
running away bit.
Yeah.
So, for example, your immune system or your digestive system, that will shut it down because that's not required in the moment to either fight or flee
Yeah.
from the saber-toothed tiger. And this also happens when you're stressed.
Yeah.
However, when you're de-stressed, when it's fine, all these chemicals go back to their normal levels, right? But as you can imagine, if you have a lot of stress repetitively and excessively, these chemicals stay about and actually perform the opposite function for what they were intended. They now become bad,
Yeah.
right? You don't want your immune system suppressed. You don't want your digestive system depressed because of excessive cortisol levels. You don't want excessive adrenaline because your heart will beat faster,
Yeah.
right? You'll be sitting having palpitations.
Uh-huh.
So this is the kind of scientific, physiological explanation for why excessive stress is bad for you.
And in my experience, people often will say, I'm not stressed, but they'll recognize the digestive symptoms because it's easy to register physical symptoms. And yeah, sometimes you might have digestive symptoms that aren't related to stress, but as often they'll come and they're saying that, and it takes a while for them to actually start to break it down, that stress, and actually start to understand what is causing them stress.
Well, I think everybody in their granny's been stressed at some point. I mean, I
Yeah.
was 31 years a police officer and I endured some stressful situations, absolutely. Subsequent to that, when I didn't have those fight or flight experiences, the stress was kind of business related because I had quite a stressful job in corporate security. And we all experience stress in, if you like, the symptoms. You know, that where your heart's beating a bit faster, your stomach's churning, you might have sweaty palms, your mouth goes dry, you might get a headache, you might have my head's pounding, right? And it's all down to stress. And yes, a lot of people say stress, I can take any amount, right? It's not a problem for me. Well, can I just suggest that that's a lot of bullshit, right? Excessive stress is bad for you. Although, to be fair, the tolerance, if you like, differs from person to person.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody has their threshold.
Aye, one person's stress level might be great for them, but would send someone else round the twist.
Yeah.
So it's a very personal thing. But generically, we all know what it is. We know we're in it, and we know what it does to us.
Yeah.
So it's then developing the self-awareness to say, I'm stressed, I need to do something about it.
Yeah, and then it's finding that thing that can help you manage it, and that'll be different for everyone.
Absolutely. I mean, the beauty of being human is we're all unique, but you can say some generalizations about stress management, and you can go into Google and just Google that word or that phrase, and you can up with 1,003 different ways of managing stress.
And the first step is just what we've said, is that recognition, and that just takes time, and that's why it's so important that we take time out our day when we are on a busy life, hectic, to take time out to check in with ourselves and go, am I experiencing stress? Because if you're bang, 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 and never having any break, then you're never going to recognize it because you're never out of it.
Okay, so I mean, it's like you say, I'm really tired, and you recognize you're tired because you work too hard.
Yeah.
So you take a break, right?
Yeah.
Or I'm hungry, I'm really hungry because you've been bang, bang, bang for 3-4 hours and you forgot to eat something, right? So we recognize that. So we should be able to recognize we're overly stressed. And I was talking to someone just the other day there about time management, and they reckon that you have a maximum concentration span of something like 50 minutes.
Mine's is less.
That will differ between people. But at the end of 50 minutes, you should take a break.
Yeah.
Because your brain is at kind of maximum capacity. And if you try to let a student cramming for exams for hours on end, they'll reach a point where you just can't soak any more in.
Yeah.
So take a break. And the same applies if you feel yourself getting stressed.
Yeah.
Take a break.
Yeah. And
we can discuss any ways of doing that, but it's the self-awareness to realise, I'm a bit stressed here, let's do something about it.
And what people don't realise as well is that stress can actually physically damage the brain. So what it'll do is it'll shut off your prefrontal cortex and shrink it so that you are no longer able to think as logically or pay attention. And that's why when you're stressed, you do have attention issues, you have memory problems. And the longer that goes on, the more damage it causes. And the harder it is to get out of that. It can change. You've got neurogenesis, but it's about actually realising that massive impact.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not just your brain and your mental facilities or faculties. The chemicals produced I've just described, I mean, you could end up with ulcers, right?
Yeah.
How did he get an ulcer? Oh, he was constantly stressed and it gave him an ulcer. Well, how does that work? Well, it works because he didn't address his stress.
Yeah.
Or the heart palpitations because you've got too much adrenaline pounding through your body, heart attacks, strokes.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be all doom and gloom here because the correlation between these things is evidenced, but it isn't necessarily that one will follow the other. It's just people should be aware of the potentially very bad effects of too much stress, and that having that mindset, oh yeah, I can cope with any amount of stress. And I used to be like that. I was a big, rough, tough rugby playing copper. Stress. Pa, I take it in my stride, right?
Yeah.
And that was a stupid reaction. Okay, it was part of our culture in the police way back in the day, but it was a stupid thing. And eventually you wake up and smell the coffee and think, you know what, you're being an idiot here. You need to take this on board and do something about it.
Yeah, when you start recognising your physical health deteriorating, then it's time to stop. Well, no, you should be stopping before that. But if you're at that stage, you need to take a step back and go, is there stress and what's going on in my life?
Exactly, right. I mean, there's no two ways about it. Just now is stressful because people are on furlough, they don't know if they've got a job to get back to, people need to run down. They mentioned earlier during our wee pre-chat, as it were, about watching the news.
Yeah.
I study in America and I found this online. So the overexposure to newspapers, television, the media, with deliberately or otherwise, and I'd leave that up to yourselves, they're immensely negative coverage of what's happening.
Yeah.
And if you constantly focus on this, it's been proven it will lead to depression and stress and anxiety. So why would you do it?
Yeah.
So my advice would be restrict yourself to a very small amount of engaging with what's happening. I know a lot of people in my circle are saying, I don't watch the news anymore.
No,
I
I
don't
don't.
read newspapers because all it does is depress me and make me stressed.
Yeah.
So that's a little tip. It's been scientifically proven that soaking in too much negative news is bad for you.
A big problem with that though is, I don't watch the news and I can't be bothered with it anymore, but I see it on social media. So your news articles or your friends will share things. So really it's very difficult to escape it nowadays.
Yes, it is because we have Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all these things I don't know how to work because of my advanced age.
Not at all.
Thank you. It's constantly in your face, right? But should you choose to engage with it?
Yeah.
That's the thing. If you decide I'm going to engage with it, you accept the consequences, the potential consequences. If you decide, no, I'm not engaging with that. I have too much going on in my life. I don't need all this negativity. That's a choice I've made.
Yeah.
I'm still aware of what's going on, but I don't focus too heavily on it because, in fact, one of the things that just makes me crab it makes me annoyed watching or listening to all this negativity.
And we are pre-wired to find negative things because back to the caveman and the saber-toothed tiger, in those days, we didn't have the same safety mechanisms. We didn't have societies as nowadays. All we had was us and that tiger and that pure survival. And that's continued. But now danger comes in so many more forms.
Oh, absolutely. As I said, stress normally is a good thing. I mean, it keeps you on your toes so you don't walk out in front of a bus. You look
which is always a good thing.
On the road and you think, well, I'm not going to do that because that's potentially dangerous because your senses have been alerted.
Yeah.
But if you live in this constant, heightened level of stress when you're kind of almost on stress autopilot, where that's your default setting, right?
Yeah.
That's where the problems will start, which will only get worse. And it's time that you recognised it and did something about it.
Yeah, like I'm thinking in my own personal experience, I was telling you earlier about my dogs and driving me completely up the wall. And their behaviours got worse over the last couple of weeks. And I found myself in a field just going, I can't deal with this anymore, because they were running away and not coming back. And I had reached my threshold. I know we can laugh about it and it sounds daft, but I had reached my threshold of can't deal with this anymore. So I went home and I've got a dog behavioural trainer now, but I had to go and I had to stop and I recognise that and do something about it. And in that situation, it was easy because I could get a trainer in. But if it's not such an easy fix, I would need to go and find a way to recognise it, manage my breathing. And it's not a pleasant feeling, but there are ways to cope with it.
Absolutely. I said earlier on, it's having the self-awareness as you did there. I've reached my threshold here. I've reached my limit. My head is at the glass ceiling.
Yeah.
And the good thing about it is you chose to take some action.
Yeah.
You chose to get somebody in to address that situation that was making you stressful.
To be fair, yeah. Well, I think they're training me more than the dogs.
Well, who knows? Who knows, indeed. But the self-awareness to say, right, this is stressing me. I need to take some sort of action. And in your situation, you brought in an external helper, as it were, to address the source of that stress in order to get your threshold back down again. But a lot of people, and not just with stress, with many things in life, they say, I'll sort this myself.
Yeah.
And then when they fail to do so, they beat themselves up and then just get into kind of denial mode, which, as we all know, and I used to do it myself, is not productive. It's almost like, and I say this to some clients, inaction is not an option.
Yeah.
Something has to be done. Something has to give.
And it goes back to what we were speaking earlier, that avoidance, that pushing it away, I'm not stressed. And it's not because I think so many people just have never learned the tools to deal with stress. And if you've never been given them or shown how to deal with it, then it's completely understandable.
Very much so. I joined the police right the late 70s, early 80s.
Uh-huh.
And it was an organisation of its time. It was quite macho. It was very heavily male dominated because not all ladies wanted to join the police. So women police officers were quite few and far between. And because it was stressful, there was smoking, heavy drinking, coping mechanisms that were coping mechanisms, but probably not the healthiest. Right? So after a particularly stressful time, and I won't go into any details, but some horrible times, you would go to the pub where you would consume copious amounts of beer, right? And that was the critical incident debrief that you had over several pints. Again, not the healthiest way of doing it, but it worked on a level, right? Yeah. And it was only latterly that they came up with counsellors and post-incident debriefs and things like that that were obviously much more effective and much healthier. Yeah. Although we still went to the pub afterwards, but anyway.
Yeah. What I say to my clients is it's understandable that if they're going to the pub after work and drinking, because that's the only thing they know at that moment. So a lot of people might beat themselves up about it at that time because it's unhealthy. But I say it's okay. We will now look at how do we make that healthier coping strategies. That's all they have. That's all they were taught as they were brought up. Let's change that now. And my first step with my clients is I do a lot of bodily work, and it is about recognising it in the body so that it's easier to recognise it in their body when they start to get tense or their heart beats faster or they have a pain in their stomach than it is sometimes to recognise the situation. So recognise the body and then think about the situation and then learn new strategies.
Absolutely. Your body's a very clever thing. It'll tell you, right? Yeah. I mean, very often we choose to ignore it. Why have I got this pain in my stomach? Yeah. Why are my shoulders so tense? Yeah. Why is my head bursting.
Yeah.
Because your body's trying to tell you something here. Something's not right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, God forbid you have a heart attack or something like that, but it's saying, slow down, take a breath, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And again, I hark back to my macho time in the police. It was just, you push forward, you push through it. I used to work 18-hour shifts in the murder inquiry. And at the end of the week, I was absolutely done in.
Yeah.
And people say, are you nuts? Well, it had to be done. We had to catch the bad guy or the bad woman or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And you ignored the warning signs, if you like, what your body was trying to tell you. Look, you muppet, slow down, would you? And okay, that was a particular example where we had to get on, but there are many ways of coping with stress.
How do you recognise it in your body when you're stressed?
I recognise it when I start to get a bit cranky. Right, crabbit is a good Scottish word.
So I have to look out for that.
When my patience levels or my patience threshold starts to dive bomb, I think I'm doing too many things. I'm concentrating too much, or I'm trying to cram too much in, or I've made some commitments that I'm struggling to keep, but I will do them, right? Until eventually common sense kicks in and I'll do something, which might be as simple as taking 5 minutes to do some breathing exercises.
Yeah.
And I've done some collaboration with a friend about ways to address your stress. If you're in a stressful situation, you get something that's bothering you, very basic one is go and talk to a trusted friend.
Yeah.
The old adage, a problem shared is a problem halved.
Yeah.
You trust this person, you just open up and tell them, and very often that'll make you feel better. And you take a breath and go, oh, thank goodness I got that off my chest.
And I've said a lot about human connection, and that actually reverses the anxiety response in the amygdala because it releases oxytocin. It is, again, a very physical, scientific thing. And often it's going and speaking about a friend, connecting on a real human emotion, human level, but also crying is a stress response. And when your tears are full of cortisol, and people might beat themselves up about crying, but if you just recognise it, that this is just a way to get my stress out, or some people might need a hug. And again, it's all science. It's not just made up.
Yeah, well, if I can remember how to say this big word, I'll tell you in a minute. There are certain breathing techniques, and again, you can go onto Google and it will tell you breathe in through your mouth or out through your nose or through your diaphragm as opposed to your chest or whatnot. And these breathing techniques stimulate a thing called GABA, right? Which is, wait for this one, gamma butyric amino acid. Big long word. Right, I had to rehearse that. Which is a neurotransmitter apparently, which has a calming effect.
Yeah.
Right? So the very act of using these breathing techniques and exercises, apart from the fact you're taking time out to do it, stimulates in your body this neurotransmitter which calms you down.
Yeah.
And again, you're talking about the science behind this. It's not all woo-woo mumbo-jumbo about breathing. There is science behind it. And I only learned this through another friend who specialises in breathing techniques. And then she goes on to talk about mindfulness. And mindfulness has some breathing techniques attached to it. And then you maybe go up the scale a wee bit about meditation. And people, meditation, what a load of nonsense. I'll be sitting cross-legged, my fingers together making a funny noise. Right? No. You sit in your chair and you do whatever you do. And again, you can download meditation apps and whatnot. The whole point of the story, Roxanne, is you're taking a break.
Yes.
You are taking your focus away from whatever's stressing you, right? Will that be work, relationships, business, whatever, and you take time out, you're taking a break, and you're doing something totally different.
Yeah.
So you're emptying your mind of that stressful stuff.
Yeah.
And you are big deep breath.
Yeah.
And relax. Now, many times have you heard people say, take a big deep breath and relax.
Yeah.
And you think, what? You think, what? Who you talk to? It works.
Oh,
There's
totally
a
works.
science behind it.
Yeah.
Right? Take 10, count to 10, hold your breath and count to 10, right?
Uh-huh.
And away and don't be so stupid. No, it does
Yeah.
work. Because when you're counting to 10, during that count to 10, you've forgotten about what was stressing you.
Yeah.
Because you're focused on counting to 10.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And anything that takes your focus away from whatever's stressing you has got to be a good thing. And when you get back to whatever was stressing you, it tends to be not quite as stressful as it was before.
Well, the thing is, you're reducing your stress response, your amygdala response, so then you're engaging with your cognitive brain, so then you can problem solve.
Well, exactly. I mean, one of the things you mentioned earlier is when you get stressed, you get kind of attention deficit. Your critical faculties are not as sharp as they were before because you've got all this stuff going on in your head, right? And what would ordinarily not be a problem, because you're overly stressed about it, it'll take you twice as long.
Yeah.
Or you'll only do it half as well. Or you'll look at it later and go, that's fairly rubbish. I was
Yeah.
going to say something else there. That's fairly rubbish. I need to do that again.
Uh-huh.
Right? So how much better is it? You get to a point and say, if I continue, this is going to end up with rubbish. So let's stop now, go away and make a cup of tea.
Yeah.
Walk around the block. Take your dog out for a walk. Go dig the garden for 10 minutes. Whatever it is.
Yeah.
You get some, and I'd almost say displacement activity, which is a totally different thing to what you were doing, the thing that was making you stressed, and you're doing something else.
Yeah.
And that's taking your mind off it, so to speak.
Because otherwise you just get caught in this cycle where you're unproductive, so you're beating yourself up about being unproductive, and you start to think, I'm never going to make this deadline, I'm never going to be able to do this. That adds stress, and 5 hours have went past and you've not done anything.
Well, it's a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
Yeah.
You disappear down the spiral of the stress hole, if you like. You disappear down the rabbit hole of stress.
Yeah.
Right? And you and I both know the more you try to fight it, the deeper down the hole you get.
Yeah.
So it's the self-awareness, self-realization that, wait a minute, I'm nearly down that hole just now. Let's have a break now.
Yeah.
So that I stay above ground, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then once I've had our break, we can continue and avoid the hole. And I'm using too many metaphors here, but I hope you get what
I love
mean.
a metaphor. A technique that actually someone told me, which is really good, because when you're in the stress response, you have that, the danger thing that we spoke about several times already, but you have that direct focus. You know, you're just focused one way, but actually if you increase your peripheral vision, then that's tricking the brain. So when and that's a technique that maybe people can try when they're stressed. Instead of just focusing straight ahead on the thing that's making you stressed, just stretch your eyes across the whole plane.
Yeah, well, I like the peripheral vision thing, the PV, as opposed to straight in front of you. I have a friend who's been to Hawaii many times and studied Hawaiian culture. And they have an exercise called hakalau. I think it's haka or kuna or something like that, right? And basically what you do is you look in front of you, so yeah, you focus on the spot in front of you, but you try and widen your vision so you can see at the corner of your eye what's happening the left, right, up and down. Another wee trick is, if you've got enough space, is put your arms out and you can just see the tips of your fingers. And then you wiggle your fingers. We call it the wiggly finger exercise. Right? And while you're looking ahead, but you're trying to see what's happening with your fingers, there is no way you can focus on the stress thing. What you're stressing you out, because you're kind of focused on, can I see my fingers? Right. Oh, wait a minute, there's something up there. And you're still looking ahead, but your eyes are looking at the ceiling, or they're looking down at the floor, or whatever it is, to the extremities of what you can see. Right? And it's physically impossible to be stressed and think about that stressful thing, that deadline, that workload thing, while you're doing that. And a lot of people say, what a load of nonsense, Willie. But I've done it and it works.
Yeah, because the brain's going, what the hell's going on here? You need to focus on this, but your vision's much wider, so it's getting confused and it's relaxing.
Yeah, exactly. So you've taken your mind off the work deadline, the workload, the, oh my God, I've got to get this finished, or whatever it happens to be, or I've got an exam coming, or oh my God, right, I forgot my mum's birthday, I'll need to rush out and get her a card. Right? it's really not the end of the world if you
Yeah.
get a card for your mum's birthday. She might be a bit hacked off, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So that stressful thing, that trigger, that thing that's causing the stress reaction. Now, once you're doing that little exercise, and there's various other exercises, that gets kind of pushed to one side, because you're doing this little exercise to refocus your attention on something else which is not stressful.
Yeah, completely agree. And my top tip for stress actually is to have fun and to have a laugh, because like the exercise that releases endorphins, but having fun and just laughing just makes you feel so good. And whether that's putting on the telly and watching a comedy film, or I don't know, going to a comedy club, or just finding someone who is amusing and who you can go and have fun and be like a kid almost.
Absolutely. I mean, there's the age-old phrase, laughter is the best medicine.
Yeah.
And it's been proven that having a good laugh, a good giggle, having fun, elevates your feel-good chemicals, your endorphins.
Yeah.
Right? Suppresses the bad stuff. Right? And everyone knows this. See, after you've had a right good laugh at something, whether it be on the telly or whatever, do you feel better? Absolutely, you feel better. Because you've released all these good chemicals in your body, and you have relaxed, and you've forgotten about all that stressful stuff, right? And you've just enjoyed yourself. You've had fun.
Yeah.
And just now, I have an aunt in Canada whom I love dearly, right? And she would come back to Scotland on holiday. Inevitably, it would rain. So we're down the beach and it's pouring down. And we're trying to eat our ice cream. And she would always say, "Are we having fun yet, kids?" And that would always make me laugh, because she was being stupid and funny and sarcastic.
Yeah.
In terms of what was happening about us eating soggy ice cream in the pouring rain. "Are we having fun yet, kids?" I still laugh thinking about it. It never ceased to make me laugh.
Yeah, it's great when you're laughing. Have you ever been to laughter yoga? That's an interesting experience.
Well, that's a concept I've never heard of.
So it is, you go and it's in a group, and the whole purpose is just to make yourself laugh. Like, there's exercises. I remember one exercise, and it did make me laugh, but so you had to open up an imaginary bill and just force yourself to laugh at it. The forcing the laugh thing I struggled with, but because I felt so silly, I laughed. And then I started laughing at the bits I shouldn't have been laughing at. And I had a good old time doing that. I felt you feel a bit silly to begin with, but it's nothing better than just, laughing.
A good belly laugh. I mean, I'm going back many years. My father was quite a serious guy, but he enjoyed a laugh. And it was Morecambe and Wise that used to make him hoot. Maybe the younger listeners who Morecambe and Wise, but he used to crease himself, Morecambe and Wise. Yeah. And you know what? I laughed at him laughing.
Yeah, exactly.
Because he was laughing so hard, it made me laugh. Right? I can picture, my poor dad's passed away many years ago, but he loved it. And you've seen yourself, when someone laughs.
Oh, it's the best.
It's almost like, I didn't find that particularly funny, but you're really funny laughing that way. And there's an old song called "The Laughing Policeman," right? Which is from 19 Canteen, right? And you could probably find it on YouTube, I don't know. But this guy just laughs, and he's got a very infectious laugh. And I defy anyone not to laugh.
Yeah.
And there are certain, you probably get friends who, when they laugh, you laugh at their laughter. Because of an infectious laugh.
Yeah, it's usually the other way about. I tell the worst jokes ever, but I find them hilarious. So I will laugh and laugh and laugh. And the jokes are so terrible that people will laugh just because I'm laughing at my own terrible jokes. And I mean, they're really bad, but they make me laugh.
Well, that's it. Whatever mechanism or whatever technique or strategy, whatever you want to call it, right? Laughter, breathing, exercise, dig in the garden, take your dog for a walk. Anything that relieves your stress. And I mean, whatever makes you feel better is what to do. You're not going to do things that make you worse. So why do you do something you enjoy that makes you feel better?
Yeah, and just try different things to find out what that thing is for you, because we're all unique.
Yeah.
And we all like different things. I'm sure there'll be many people who do not like my terrible jokes, but they might like I hate gardening, Willie. That's my idea, total stress. But for so many people, it's great.
Well, I'm not a keen gardener. All I do is I quite like neat and tidy. So the grass gets cut, and it gets pulled out because it's neat and tidy, right?
You'd hate my garden.
I don't grow things. I mean, a lady was kind enough to give my wife and I a cherry tree after my mother-in-law died, because cherries were my mother-in-law's favourites. And I was paranoid that I was going to plant this thing and it would die. And funny enough, it nearly did die, because I cut bits off of it, wanted to cut, and it survived, right? So I'm not a gardener by any means.
Yeah.
But I did a little video with a friend who asked me, is gardening good for stress relief?
Yeah.
And I did a bit of research on it. And I just Googled gardening and stress relief, and there's this whole spiel of stuff about gardening.
Yeah.
So one is the exercise we've talked about, the endorphins. You're getting that physicality. And you know that if you've been training or you've been running or you've been working out, you do feel better afterwards because you've achieved something and you've relieved the stress. You're out in the fresh air in the garden.
Yeah.
You're hopefully, considering it's Scotland, you're hopefully getting some sunshine, some vitamin D. For example, how often have you been a sunny day and your dog or your cat goes out and sprawls themselves out in the back garden and soaks the sun up? Because they're not stupid, because they know that sun's good for them.
Yeah.
Right? So another thing about, if you're a keen gardener, for example, and you like planting stuff and watching it grow and seeing the colours and going, I created that. I went down to the garden centre and I bought that wee thing there, and I've grown it and I've watered it and I've fed it, and I've now got this beautiful display of whatever flowers. And you get that enormous sense of self-satisfaction.
Yeah.
And sit out in the back garden in a rocking chair or something like that and chill out. So gardening is good for you.
Talking about that cherry tree, I actually think that's a really good metaphor for life, and that the cherry tree was kind of wilting and it wasn't going too well, and that could be a representation of stress, and it just needed that little bit of self-care to flourish.
That's a great metaphor. I went on, not when I gardener, I went on to Google and said, what do I do with this tree? And it says trim these branches off, right? I trimmed the branches off, and about a month later I looked at it and went, oh, that's not looking very clever.
Yeah.
So back on the internet again and put some plant feed or whatever it was. Now, I don't think it survived, right? And it's sitting there. What I've got to do just now, though, is there's some insect eating the leaves, whatever it is. I'll need to do that again. But the whole point about it is it survived. I was quite happy about that. Right?
Yeah.
I hate to go back to the lady who said, I've killed your cherry tree, by the way. But the back to the gardening bit is the satisfaction you get out of, I've created that, I've made that neat, I've planted that, it's growing. Yeah. Then, of course, you've got, if you want to grow your potatoes or tomatoes, and I know a lot of people have got greenhouses and they grow tomatoes. That's all they grow, tomatoes. Right? Yeah. Maybe they like tomatoes, but
maybe, yeah.
A sense of achievement when you've planted it, and then you're sitting one night with your salad and you're eating the tomato that you've grown.
Yeah.
Right? Sense of satisfaction, achievement, whatever it is. So, without belabouring the point, not everybody's got a garden, of course. Right? Yeah. You have window boxes, but if you have a garden and you have the opportunity to go out in it, it's that displacement activity. It gets you exercise, gets you some fresh air, sunshine, and so on.
Yeah, and I think that the Google thing, you went on a Google to try and find, how do I keep this cherry tree alive? How do I help it survive? And that is linked to going out and finding that strategy to help you cope with stress. And sometimes you need a wee bit of external help, and that's where you and I, Willie, come in. You being a life coach and me being a therapist, slightly different areas of work, but it's helping that person to flourish and grow, and within themselves, we're just giving them the tools to do that.
Exactly. We're giving them some tools. We're guiding them a wee bit. We're giving them a wee helping hand, metaphorically, since we can't meet face to face. I do hypnotherapy, which I would utilise if the previous things I've discussed, the self-help things,
Yeah.
have not quite fully addressed the problem.
Yeah.
Hypnotherapy, the therapeutic use of hypnosis, is a very effective way of addressing stress. But again, people have to be self-aware enough to realise, I'm stressed, I've tried these techniques, it's not quite hitting the mark, I'll seek some external help. The Google is a wonderful thing, or the internet's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
You can find out all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
I use it, and possibly my detective background is I like to find things out.
Yeah.
Find the evidence, find the clues and whatnot. And as I said earlier on, you can go on Google and find in about meditation, mindfulness, breathing exercises, and for that matter, how to save a cherry tree. So it's all there.
Yeah, and if people wanted to, and I'm sure you'll say the same, if people just wanted to drop us a message just to ask for some tips or directions on where to go, then we would both be really happy to do that. I'm sure you agree, Willie.
Yes, absolutely. I have some videos I could give people. I have some documents that I've rigged up just purely from research. And I mean, what they have to bear in mind is this is my take on it. Right?
Yeah.
They might, and I make the caveat right from the word go is I'm not a doctor. I have no medical training apart from the first aid training, the very rudimentary first aid training I got in the police, a recovery position, and a bit of breathing exercises and whatnot for victims of whatever. So I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. What I do know is what works for me, what has worked for my clients, and what I know works for other people.
Yeah.
And it's only a suggestion. Take it if you want, ignore it if you want. A suggestion about these are ways of addressing stress levels which will work for me, work for my clients, work for other people, and it's worth just having a look at them.
Exactly, it is. And back to that, finding that thing that works for you and taking what you want and leaving what doesn't work. At the end of the day, I think that's a message.